Hey, this is Gina Grad.
Hi, this is Teresa Strasser.
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Errico.
Hey there. This is Casey Cavalier.
I'm Rocky Rose.
And you are listening to The Jay Franze Show.
Lucky you.
Welcome to The Jay Franze Show. A behind-the-curtain look at the entertainment industry with insights you can't pay for and stories you've never heard. Now, here's your host, Jay Franze.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. I am Jay Franze, and this is your backstage pass to the entertainment industry. This week, we get to talk with a multi-award winning drummer. We get to talk with Paul Leim. We'll talk to him about the impact that Louie Bellson had on him, what it was like playing on the road with Tom Jones, and we'll talk to him about his time in the studio with Lionel Richie. Now, Paul is not only a great studio drummer, but he's an amazing live drummer. He is the top choice for tracking records and recording films, and I can't wait to talk to him about all of that here tonight. So if you would like to join in, comment, or fire off any questions, please head over to jayfranze.com. Now, let's get started. Paul, sir, how are you?
We're doing great. We're in the middle of Ice Planet Hoth here in Nashville.
It is a little cold there, sir.
Moved here from LA 36 years ago, and I've never seen anything like this. But it's beautiful snow. But we've got a flight to Germany we've got to get out on in about 36 hours, and I hope planes start to fly again.
Holy cow, talk about some pressure, right?
Yeah, you know about the pressure cooker.
Well, there is so much I want to talk to you about tonight, sir. I mean, what I want to start off with is your inspiration. What kind of impact did Louie Bellson have on you?
Oh, my gosh. A family friend, Freddie Raimhild, was a flying buddy of my dad's. My dad had an airplane on our farm in Texas, and they were flying buddies. And he would come over and hang out for the weekend, stuff like that. And I was beating on everything in the house. In the third grade, I would go to band practice with my sister, and he said, you've got to hear something. And he brought Skin Deep. He brought a recording, 1952, I believe it was. I believe it was a 52, where Louie done this arrangement, Skin Deep, for Duke Ellington. And they recorded it. It just changed my life when I heard those bass drums and I heard that solo. I knew at that moment that that's what I had to. That's what I had to do. About 10 or 12, I guess it was, maybe. I think it was more like 12, probably. But yeah, Louie was my very first hero. And then our little town of Troop didn't have a real drum set, so I would take a marching bass drum home for the summer, and a parade drum for a snare drum, and a parade drum for a tom in front, and a marching cymbal, take it off the leather, use the Piatti and set it up as a cymbal, and play along with the Beatles and Ringo and stuff. And my mom always had music going in the house, so we would have breakfast at Tiffany's going, and she would get these Time Life records, or stack of records, and it'd be Ferranti and Teicher and Hank Mancini. And so, gosh, that was when I was 14, and by the time I was 15 years later, by the time I was 29, I was working with Henry Mancini.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty much the way my whole career's gone. I was a huge Tom Jones fan when I was in high school. He had his TV show, and my favorite, like the Elvis show that we do, so many the big screen show, Elvis concert and stuff. My favorite orchestra to play in is a rock and roll rhythm section with a full orchestra behind you. It's everything. That's all. That's why God intended music to be done, with every instrument on the planet all playing at once, in my opinion. So I would always be late for my honky-tonk gig on Wednesday nights, because Tom's show is on Wednesday nights, and so I'd be late for work. And he always get on me, and I said, man, I'm going to be late. I'm just going to be late on Wednesday nights. Tom Jones has his TV show. But I was 18 at the time, and by the time I was 28, 10 years later, I was doing all of Tom Jones's recordings and TV specials and special concerts. I've been incredibly fortunate. I've worked my butt off. It's hard work. Pros make it look easy, but it's a lot of hard work.
Yes, you, sir, you make it look easy. So what was it like being on the road with Tom Jones?
Oh, that was great. Both of us would lose 5 pounds in 2 hours because I'm so excited to be with him. Same thing happens with the Elvis show, but I'd lose 5 pounds in 2 hours doing his show with all those songs. And of course, he's dancing around, jumping on stage, and all the stuff he did, those crazy moves of his. And I'm catching everything. And then we'd take a shower and go get on the jet to go to the next city, and he'd still be on. He'd be, as he's walking back to the his private suite at the back of the jet. It was a Vickers Viscount, and at the back of the jet, he'd be hitting the back of the seats, walking through the seat. Come along, baby, whole lot of shaking going on. He'd be singing Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis. He's a great guy. I hadn't seen him in 40 years, and he played the Ryman maybe 6 months ago now. And I got out my old tour jacket from 1977. And so I went to see him at the Ryman. I hadn't seen him in 40 years. And he just had the same sweet smile and sweet demeanor. And he's just such a great guy. I love Tom Jones. He was everything I thought he was when I didn't know him in high school. He was everything I thought he was.
That's awesome.
And he's amazing. His voice is just beyond reason. He's so incredible. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. After that was 77. So by 79 and 80, when Lee Sklar asked me to go out with James Taylor, we had kids at home. That wasn't the thing to do. So I stayed at home with the kids. Like you're at home with your kids right now, aren't you?
True statement.
Which is a good thing. Good on you. So I decided not to go out, and I stay in the studio. I just thought that's where my future was with my family. So it worked out.
Now, you've had an amazing career, and you've played with just about everybody under the sun. But at the start of your career, touring with Tom Jones and flying on private jets, did you even know what you had at that time?
Not really till later, when you're in the middle of it. I had a guitar player, one of the guys I worked with in Dallas, Vic Stewart, worked with him a lot. And when I moved to L.A. in January of 77, we were talking, and he said, "You're going to be so busy when you're the guy, when you're the cat, you're going to be so busy you won't know it. You'll just be working." It's kind of the way it was. I mean, there's a lot of things I forgot I did. Tracy, she's our assistant, and she's found things that I completely forgot that I did. TV specials with Roseanne Cash and TV specials with Tom Jones and Tanya Tucker. I completely forgot that I did them. And she'll say, "Well, I think you did it in June of 79. And I go, "Gosh, did I really do that?" And I've still got all my old studio logs and everything. Go back and I look. There it is, June the 12th, 1979. Tom Jones and Tanya Tucker. I'm making up that date, but she's found all this stuff. And it's just been an incredible opportunity. I grew up to be what I wanted to be, and I'm so thankful. I'm just so thankful.
Well, you've played with some of my favorites, from Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton to Shania Twain, but you've also had the opportunity to play on some of the Lionel Richie stuff. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we were doing Kenny Rogers. We were doing a particular record. It was Blaze of Glory, I believe it was. We were at the old ABC Dunhill, which he ended up buying and remodeled and put in a studio called Lion's Share.
Yep. There
in Hollywood. We were working on Kenny, and Jim Mazza, Kenny Rogers' manager, was on a flight that Lionel Richie was on. And so he started talking to Lionel, and he said, "Why don't you, Kenny was the hottest thing on the planet, right? So he said, that'd be great if you and Kenny did a work together. What would you think of that?" And Lionel's a great guy, Southern boy, and he too is exactly what you think. He's not making up anything. That's who he is. He's so kind. He's so endearing. He makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room, and he has the ability to do that with everybody. So Lionel came in the studio because Jim Mazza had introduced them, and he goes, "This is my band. I love this band." So that's how we kind of ended up starting working with Lionel. He interchanged some people, but it was John Hobbs and Joe Chimay, and we were kind of a unit there that we had done. The first gold record I ever played on was an album called TNT with Tanya Tucker. And Jerry Sheff, who was with Elvis at the time, he put that band together. And it was Billy Joe Walker Jr. and John Hobbs, Jerry Sheff, and myself. That was the rhythm section. But then Jerry went out on the road with John Denver. He went out with John Denver, so we were in the studio, and so he left a big hole in L.A., when he started touring. Of course, he'd been with Elvis, but he tried to stay in town as much as he could. We'll be here all night long if I get off track. So anyway, yeah. So John Hobbs knew Joe Chimay, and Joe and I ended up doing probably 200 million records together after that. The first record we did was Truly. And we were working at A&M Studio B when we started. James Anthony Carmichael producing, of course. And it was just a great time to see Lionel come into his own right, so to speak, with his songs and his artistry as he started pulling away from the Commodores. And in the interim between when he said, "This is my band, this is what we're going to do," Lionel Richie called me one day. I'll never forget it. Standing in my kitchen in Thousand Oaks, he called and he said, "Paul, this is Lionel." I'm going,
Hello.
"Okay, hey Lionel, how you doing?" He said, "Man, do you think this is going to work? You know, the guys that come out of a band, they're so used to sharing the limelight with everybody else. It's a group effort. They're used to being in a group. They're not used to working with studio guys. And instead of working on one song for a week or something like that, like some of the bands did, they work on a song forever. We go in and look at 3 hits in a day, you know." So he was worried about it not working. He said, "Man, you know, you're in the studio with all these people and you work with all these people. And man, do you really think this is going to work?" And, you know, being away from the guys. And I said, "Lionel, man, this is a home run. Dude, it's a home run. You don't have to worry about this. You got this." Peter Cetera did the same thing when we did Glory of Love. He called. He said, "Paul, it's Peter." And I said, again, like, "Hey, Peter, how you doing?" You know, coming out of a band. He's having his first hit record. And he said, "Hey, Peter, how you doing, man? What's going on?" And he said, "Man, we go number one. Glory of Love goes number one next week. I just got the word, goes number one next week." Man. And I said, "It's your record." And he said, "Well, you're part of it."
Right.
And I said, "Man, that's awesome. That's all. Thanks for thinking of me." I said, "That's great, man. This was wonderful." You know, then when it got nominated for Academy Award, "Hey, Paul, it's Peter." So, sometimes you develop a closer rapport with them, and sometimes you got to be careful about getting too close. Word of warning to people: let them get close. Don't try to pull yourself and get too close. That's a recipe for disaster.
A red flag.
That's a red flag.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was with Lionel Richie, a lot of effort went into that session.
Yep.
Can you talk about that session for a minute?
With Lionel's stuff, he was so used to working with his band, and they would go in and they would labor over a song. So he just did like Mutt Lange. He just couldn't comprehend that the musicians were of a caliber where they could go in and do their best performance, listen to the song down, play it, come up with some ideas. The second take, third take, fourth take maybe is going to be their best performance. Lionel would want to do it over and over. And James Anthony Carmichael, his producer, he would write out everything, and he would want to run the intro and the verse. Stop, don't go any further. Very similar to Mutt Lange, that piece at a time. Let's get all this perfect. Let's make your notes or remember what we're doing here. Let's don't go any further. Let's get this perfect. So now we're going to play intro, verse, and first chorus. Okay, and stop at the first chorus. Don't keep going. So we stop. And Lionel would always, he would always talk to me. He would talk to me, "Paul, dig in here," or "Paul, not so hard here." There's a great story. You can actually go on Alexa, Prime Music, and you can hear Lionel talking to me. We would play it over and over and over and over, and then it would get to be 2:00 in the morning, and everybody's just going, "Man, I'm tired." Okay, and then Lionel would say, "Everybody available tomorrow at 2:00? You look at your schedule and you go, "Oh, I've got a TV show till 3:00. Can we do it at—" "Oh yeah, no problem. We'll start at 5:00. "Great, it's time for sushi," right? So we stop, finish your first date, leapfrog sets. I have one set would be at Universal, other set goes to Lionel Richie, and then the set that's at Universal when I'm with Lionel Richie goes to Warner Brothers the next day, and then the set 2, I actually numbered mine 1 and 2. Hal Blaine had a better idea. He marked them in colors, blue and red, because he'd had a producer say one time, "Why have I got set 2?
Right.
Why don't I have set 1? That doesn't make any sense. Am I not worth set 1?
Right. Yeah.
They were identical sets, identical shells and everything. But anyway, yeah, we ended up playing Stuck on You for 3 days of triple dates, all day long for 3 days. And it was like, yeah, we'll play this. Lionel, we'll play this as long as you want to play it.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. Well, you know Nashville. You worked with us here in Nashville.
I know, but things are so fast. I mean, and you get players like yourself, and you tell them what you want, and you get what you want on the first, second, or third try. I mean, and it's done. And to just think that you're having those players play over and over and over again, eventually that curve has to start, dropping down.
Yeah, we didn't have cell phones then, but everybody would have been on their cell phone by about the 15th take, looking at their date.
You mentioned Mutt Lange in there as well, and you had an opportunity to work on the Shania records. We both know Bob. That's how I met you, Bob Bullock, working in the studio with him. Yeah. And he worked on the Shania records, and I've heard stories from him. Yeah. But that was before my time working with Bob, so I didn't get to work on the records. What was it like working with him?
Had Mutt been born 150 years earlier, he would have been Mozart. He's an absolute genius. He hears all the parts that he wants. He has certain things with every record. If you'll listen to any Mutt Lange record, you will hear the bass cut off before the snare drum hits. It's doom. He wants a tiny breath of air just before the snare drum hits, so the snare drum can speak in the track. So the bass never holds over where the snare drum is going to hit. But I think it was Come On Over, The Woman in Me, and then Up. Right? Yeah, Dave was on the first one, and then Joe Chimay was on the second one, because Mutt heard a lot of records that Joe and I had played on together. I worked as much with both Dave Hungate and Joe Chimay. We did so many, hundreds and hundreds of sessions together. But with Lionel, he would. Funny thing about Lionel, he would try to get distracted. If there were people in the studio, he's very, very social. So he would go out in the hall and start walking down the hallway trying to talk to somebody, and he'd tell Cal to keep playing the track back. We're in the control room listening. Cal's playing the thing back. And if he could go out in the hallway and try to carry on a conversation, but if the track was so compelling that it drew him back in the studio, he would go, hang on a second. And he'd stop the conversation and walk back in. And he'd walk back in with us. He'd walk back into the control room. He'd go, sniffing. I smell money. I smell money. That was Skeet's line. I smell money. His nickname in college was Skeet, so we'd call him Skeet every once in a while. So anyway, Brenda Richie told me his nickname in college was Skeet. Call him Skeet sometimes. So one session, I said, "Hey Skeet, what are we doing on this?" He went, "Where'd you hear that?"
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was great. But the Say You, Say Me, that was later on when they were linking multiple machines together, and it was getting incredibly complex. And Lionel sometimes didn't have the songs completed. We get in the studio, and I'll tell you a story about this, and you can go online as soon as we're done, or any of your listeners can go online on Amazon Music and listen to this. But I'm going to tell the story. With Say You, Say Me, he had the ballad part done, and I programmed just boom, ga, boom, ga, boom on the Linn drum, right? And then, of course, they went in and replaced any sound. Now you can do it Pro Tools like that. It's nothing.
Right.
But back then you had to use a Publison. So it was a sampler that was no latency on the response on that. And you could put a gate on the snare drum where it would just go, you didn't get a trail on the snare drum. Use that spike, hit the Publison, put it on the record, and you could put any snare drum sound you wanted on the record. So, matter of fact, JR asked me one time, he said, I know that's my snare drum on Say You, Say Me, but you played the tom fills, and it's my snare drum. And I said, man, it's Publison. Cal did it with Publison. Oh, that's how they did it. Okay. So anyway, they get the slow part and then the fast part, and then back to the slow part. And so I programmed this one song, and he built this other song in the middle of it. It wasn't all done like this. It was edited together. And so I went back in, and I'm all the drum fills, the cuckoo, cuckoo, oh, say you, say me, and then back to the Linn drum. So it's JR in the fast part, Whoa, yeah. It's me programming the Linn drum on the front and the back, and it's me playing the drum fills between the edited together sections. Sometimes we just have to build records like that to get what they want. Oh, going back to Truly. When we cut the very first one, Lionel, he just didn't feel comfortable when we would cut his demo. He just wasn't comfortable with it. And he was just, yeah, that sounds great. Guys, it's great, but it doesn't have, it just doesn't have this. It doesn't have. And so after about 2 days, we said, play the demo. Where's the demo? Play us your piano vocal demo. So he played it. It was magical. It was just magical. I think one of us, I just said, put it out like that. There's your record. You don't need anything else on that. Overdub strings on it, and there's your record. And there's your record, Hoss, like I said on Shania. Anyway, there's your record. And no, we want this on. Let's overdub. So we overdubbed drums and bass to Lionel Richie's piano vocal demo on Truly, and that's why you'll hear it float to keep that emotion in it. You'll hear that track float, and it's okay. Tempo's part of music. Right. We've gotten into this
world of the
after
click.
The long weekend in '83. We turned into a click environment, and it's a shame, but tempo's part of music. Hal Blaine used to rush on the end of every song, and it just sounded so exciting. It was great. All the mamas and the papas stuff, listen to those records. On the fade out, you'll hear Hal pushing it, getting faster and faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. We had Mike Errico. He's a singer-songwriter from New York. He was on the show, and he was talking about working with Jay Joyce and said that Jay had a quote of the click track sucked the life out of music.
So, yeah, great line. That's a great line. Yeah. And then drummers that had really good time that actually were not used to playing with it would get mad. They'd say, well, that thing's dragging. No, it's not dragging. It's not dragging. We all learned how to listen to Hal Blaine.
Right.
And Hal Blaine had this, he would float things a little quicker, and that put the excitement in them. And listen to an Elvis performance with Ronnie Tutt playing. I have to play along with those tracks on big screen. That's the excitement that Elvis wanted in his live performances, and Ronnie went with it. Ronnie had the best time in the world, but he went with it.
Yeah, he was Elvis's live drummer.
Yeah, after the '68 comeback special, Ronnie was with Elvis for 9 years. He was a dear, dear friend. Our kids grew up together. His family with Donna and our family, our kids all grew up together. So we're like extended family. And
that's too bad.
Couldn't stand up, and I went to my knees is when they carried him out of the house. It was a sad day. He was a great, great mentor and a great friend. He was a great player. Yeah. He was great. Ronnie, came out of North Texas, playing big band in the lab band, North Texas. Of course, he was a studio guy. It's Ronnie Tutt on Feliz Navidad. Jose Feliciano, Feliz Navidad. That's Ronnie Tutt. It's Ronnie Tutt on Piano Man with
Billy Joel.
Yeah. So anyway, I loved Ronnie. So I enjoy talking about him.
Well, I mean, I always thought it was funny too. I didn't know growing up that there was live players and then there were studio players, and a lot of times those paths don't cross. It seems to be happening more and more these days, but when I started, it was you had the studio guys playing in the studio, and that was it.
That's true. Back in L.A., if you went on the road, it was kind of the kiss of death in the studios. But Lee Sklar, fabulous and incredible bass player, Lee Sklar, he's the bass player you saw with Phil Collins and James Taylor with the full beard all the way down to his chest, and he looks like a biker. He's terrified of motorcycles. Lee would never get on a motorcycle, but he looks like a biker, dude. But that's his brand. I was never very good at branding.
That's my next thing. Yeah.
Branding yourself. There you go. Well, you're doing that right now.
Bearding myself.
Bearding yourself.
I was talking to Jeff King about that because he's a great session player. I love working with Jeff.
Great guy.
And he also goes on the road with Reba and Brooks and Dunn.
Yeah.
And I was asking him how he fits that in and how he's doing it. And he says, well, these days, as long as your schedule can handle it, that's the stigma isn't quite there anymore. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, that's very true. Back in 2013, we'd worked with Michael Nesmith from the Monkees back since '78 after the Monkees were over. And we got back together with Michael in 2013, and he had this concept of an album. and a live performance you want to do called Music of the Mind. And he wanted to tell stories around the songs that he'd written, like Joanne and those songs. And I was like, oh boy, because I was doing all the Kenny Chesney records at the time. And so thankfully, Buddy Cannon, or Shannon Finnegan, his assistant, would call and say, Paul, can you do Kenny Chesney's 10 o'clock on the so-and-so? And I'd say, I'm in New Jersey with Michael Nesmith, but I'll catch the red eye back. Can you make it at 2 o'clock? So they would kindly move it to 2 o'clock so I could make it. And you talk about pressure cooker.
Wow.
Getting on a plane in New Jersey in
Hoping
February.
to make it on time.
And we've all done it. I've gotten on a 6 a.m. flight in Nashville, because you pick up 2 hours going to L.A. I've gotten on a 6 a.m. flight in Nashville, and Johnny Lord at Center Staging would have me set up for a 10 a.m. in Los Angeles. Walk in the studio at 9:30 and have a 10 o'clock downbeat.
Here's your chart. Go.
Here's your chart. Go.
Speaking of charts, can you take a minute to discuss the Nashville number system?
Yeah, sure. Matter of fact, strange you should say that. Here's one right here. Oh, it's Kenny Chesney. Here's the very chart we used on a song called Coach. It's probably shorthand. And a song called Famous. And the idea is, say it's in C. So C, F, C, F. So if C is da 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 da, 4 4, the 1 and the 4, then the 5. So Louie Louie, the old song, ba na na, ba 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 ba, for your listeners, is it's 1 1 1 4 4 5 5 5 4 4 1 1 1, and so many songs, especially country songs. A lot of songs, pop songs, and everything
1 4
are
5.
built on a typical 1 4 5, just different arrangements of 1 4 5. So that's if it's in C. Of course, if it's in the key of B, then it's associated in the 1, the 4, and the 5 again. Go find a song that we did on Kenny Chesney that has Famous in it. I don't know what it is. Oh, I played Cajon on that. Oh, that was 9/24/13. That's when I flew back in from Michael Nesmith, the story I was telling you earlier. There's the chart.
And it all
I played
comes
Cajon
full
on that.
circle.
We cut a tune called Beer Can Chicken on Kenny Chesney, Like It Never Happened. A tune called Salt. Crossroad. Larry Paxton did all our charts, and so he would do shortcuts. He wouldn't actually write out the whole title. Matter of fact, sometimes he put a funny title in place of it.
Right.
Another Chesney tune, South Side of Heaven. As we're listening down to the demo, I hear things in my head as I'm listening because I already know what I'm going to do. So it's just from years of doing it. The first listen down, I start marking my part in my head, what I want to remember to do when I get back out on the floor, right? We call this a Charleston figure. Dun, bum, gone, want, dun, bum, right? And so the word Charleston comes from the old thing from the 30s. Bum, 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 bum.
Right.
That's the figure, dotted quarter, eighth note, bum, bum, do 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 do, bum, bum, and we call it a Charleston. Guys, we're going to play a Charleston there. Is that funny? Studio lingo. So anyway, your question.
So when you get that chart and someone presses play on the demo, how quickly do you go from that to getting in the studio and going red?
Well, we'll listen down to the demo. Sometimes it's just a guitar vocal demo or a piano vocal demo. Usually it's guitar. And most usually it is a completed demo that they've done at a publishing company because they're trying to pitch the song. So we'll listen down. I'll make notes like I just talked about. I'll hear a part in my head and I'll go ahead and write down what I think I want to do. Then we go in and we run it. And when you work with somebody like Dave Hungate or Joe Chimay or Larry Paxton so much, you're both already hearing the same thing. I mean, we've done hundreds and hundreds of sessions together. It's like, have you ever had your wife, you have a thought and she says it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happens when you spend that much time in the studio with and doing so many different artists with the same players. You almost know what they're going to play. And that's why they sound like hit records, because a lot of times we do the same thing over and over. There's another Kenny chart. called Santa Monica. Your listeners can actually go on and tell Alexa to play Santa Monica by Kenny Chesney, and they'll hear that chart. Love is what you make it. My first note on this tune, Nobody Sad on a Saturday Night for Kenny Chesney, my first note was hand claps. So here's a tune in the same pile. This is Billy Ray Cyrus, Some Gave All.
Dude, he's just awesome. Record. I love Billy.
Yeah, I love Billy Ray. And of course, we just mark it BRC, you know. Anyway, that's some pretty cool stuff there. I didn't even know we were going to do that.
That was awesome. I appreciate you doing that. It was really cool. Yeah. You've had the opportunity, like I said, to play with everybody, but you've also played some music for movies. Can you talk about what the difference is between playing for a record and playing for a movie?
More pressure yet.
Really? Why is that?
More pressure yet. Well, if you're doing a picture with John Williams and there's 106 pieces on the floor, 106 musicians on the floor, and he wants it on the second take. One's a rundown, and the second take, that's the take. That's it. I mean, you don't go, hey, wait, I think, John, I think I kind of missed that part on going into the second chorus. I could use that again. With 106 people on the floor?
Right.
No. You don't do that. You sight read it down the first time, and you play the song. You play a perfect part the second time. It's just the way it is.
How does that make you feel?
That's just what you do. There's no feeling or emotion about it. It's just, you just do it. I mean, after years and years of doing it, that's just what you do.
Just part of the job.
It was different when we did the Star Wars thing with John, with the Max Rebo Band, a song called Jedi Rocks, the Max Rebo Band. He was in a hurry. We were scoring this scene in Jabba's lair. It's Jabba's lair where Leia comes back in. She's got the thermo detonator in her hand, and she's trying to get Jabba to let go of Han Solo, because Han Solo's in cryo freeze, right? And there's that party with the blue elephant playing the piano and that thing. Yeah. He was in a hurry, and he just ran. He came in and scrolled out a rhythm part, and we played down the rhythm part, and then he had Jerry Hay come in and score the trumpets, and Jerry Hay wrote the trumpets on it. So that's a thing called Jedi Rocks, the Max Rebo Band from Return of the Jedi. But yeah, with John, or with Steve Dorff doing all the episodic series, Johnny Harris. My first episodic series was Wonder Woman with Linda.
Yep.
Of course, I was her musical director for 13 years till COVID hit us in 2000, shut everything down. But yeah, you go in, you recut the theme. We had a thing in LA called, for television and motion pictures, the contract called for 100% scoring. The business end of it was 100% scoring. Whereas doing a TV show for Dick Clark, it was Dick Clark's bloopers and practical jokes. I don't know if you ever saw that or not, but when we did that was under the videotape agreement. And we loved the videotape agreement because you go in and you do one session, you make $600 for the one session, you get 75% because they can use the music over and over and over again. It's just a different negotiated contract. So you get 75%. So you do the first sessions at $600, you get $450 a week for the rest of the year. That's what I like. They negotiated 100% scoring. Why did they negotiate 100% scoring? So their engineers would keep working, so their tape ops would keep working, so they could keep billing for the studio and run the cost of the production up. And it's a profit deal. It's a movie.
So would you rather record a record or record a film?
Oh, I love it all. Anywhere I can play. I love playing with our fun band, the Eagle Maniacs, down at 3rd and Lindsley, or the TCB Band with Elvis Show. I love that. I love doing movies. I love doing American Airlines commercials. 7-Eleven, Safeway. I love playing Trump's inauguration, with the Jim Rushlow Big Band.
What was that like?
Oh my gosh. It was amazing. The ballrooms are the size of a football field. They're about 100 yards long and 50 feet wide, and it's just packed with people. So when Tim Rushlow called me, he said, Paul, will you do Trump's inauguration? I'd be honored to do that with you. We have the Tim Rushlow Big Band. You do the American Songbook. And Tim's such a great singer. He does Bobby Darin as good as Bobby Darin did. Matter of fact, Bobby Darin's family, let him use the original charts. We were playing Bobby Darin's original charts. So anyway, he calls, and I said, well, I want Drums Unlimited to supply the drums because they know what I need. They have my setup. And he said, well, the guy that's doing backline said he thinks he can get what you want. And I said, no, Tim, I know that Drums Unlimited can do it, and just call John at Drums Unlimited and just get the drums from there. Well, this guy, Jan, said he really thought he knew what you wanted. I said, Jan? I said, Jan Parent? He said, yeah, Jan Parent, that's his name. That's Center Staging in Los Angeles. Then I thought, oh, yeah, it's just another Dick Clark TV show. The whole inauguration, every inauguration, it's the pageantry of another CMA Awards or the ACMA Awards or the American Music Awards. And I did all those for 20 years.
Them all.
I played them all. So it's just another TV show. Of course, Jan Parent. So I immediately called Jan. I go, Jan, were you having your way with Tim Rushlow? Are you bringing my drums from Los Angeles to D.C. for the inauguration? He said, Paul, of course I am. I'm bringing your drums. He said, I told him I thought I could get what you wanted. I was going to surprise you, though.
Because it's your own kit.
It's my own kit. Anyway.
That's crazy. So you've played every award show. Are there any differences between them?
Some of them you're playing live. Sometimes you'll be live with the artist. But like on the CMA Christmas specials with the orchestra that we did for 10 years, that's all pre-record. We do all the pre-record ahead of time. The artists are singing live, but what they do is they use the music. When you're editing TV shows together, you have to have something that's common. You either have to use a SMPTE track, and so you're using numbers when you're editing a film together. But on musicals, the common ground for all the different takes, for the cutaways and all that, the common ground is the music. So the music is the bed for the video edit.
Right.
So we do the pre-record where you see me up close. That's a dress rehearsal that we did the day before. It's not on the show. It's the day before. So the cutaways are close-ups of us. They're called cutaways, and it shows me or me playing the hi-hat or Kerry Marks playing the guitar part or anybody, any guitar player. Anytime you see a close-up, that's not them. It's already been done. It's in the can. And once the TV show comes out and is edited together, they use the music for the timeline, the stars doing the vocal, and then they can go back and they fly in these cutaways of musicians playing up close in post. That's how the production gets put together.
There's a benefit for the click track if there was ever a benefit for one.
Yeah, that's where the click track is important with that. So yeah, if you're doing a picture, if you're doing a movie, that's one thing. You play a certain style then, and it has to be quick. So you go with the safe stuff. Or a TV show, you pretty much go with the safe stuff, what'll get you through the date as quick as possible. Then on records, you have more time to be more experimental. I can program something. But back when we were doing Battlestar Galactica and all that stuff, everybody else went to lunch, and I'd sit there programming, you know, and that was before MIDI. So we had to use the time machine. We'd use a time machine, and we use these analog subdividers to get the tempos, and we were working in frames per beat as opposed to beats per minute.
That's insane.
It is insane. I'm not sure I could do it anymore now since I've been playing pop and country records in Nashville for 35 years. I'm not sure I'd want to be back in that pressure cooker again. You talk about a pressure cooker. It's because it's got to be perfect the second time. There is no third take.
The amount of work that goes into it and the edits that go into it to make it just perfect is insane to me. And when people hear it, they just think, oh, wow, that was cool. Or, that was a simple little beat. It's like, no, there's nothing simple about what you just heard.
You're right. No, you're right. We work really hard to make it look easy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hard work to make it look easy. Yeah.
What's it like to be an award winner?
Well, it's always an honor to do that. Just to be recognized for your hard work. It's not just being recognized because you played on a bunch of records. It is a lot of hard work. You fly to LA and you do a record, then you fly back, go straight to the studio. You don't see your family for days, and then you go out with Neil Diamond or whoever, and you do concerts, and then you fly back and you're back in the studio with Kenny Chesney or Michael Nesmith, whoever. Like I say, it's a real honor to have been able to do this, and to be recognized for the hard work is really something. But anyway, after the 8 years in a row, they didn't want me to win it anymore at Modern Drummer, so they kind of sidelined me after 8.
Gave it to somebody else. No.
A lot of guys deserve it. I'm just one of them.
We have to play fair.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
Well, we've got the TCB Band, Elvis's band, as many originals as possible that are still playing. We go to Europe for his birthday, and we did the opening show at 3rd and Lindsley this last Monday, January the 8th, which was his Elvis's birthday. We'll be in Bad Homburg, Germany, at the Steigenberger Hotel, where Elvis was stationed in Bad Homburg, stay at the same hotel. Bad Homburg and Bad Nauheim, which is about 15 minutes away, have taken Elvis in as a hometown boy. As a matter of fact, in Bad Nauheim, when you look up to cross the street and the light changes, it's okay. It's an image of Elvis with a guitar, like, it's not just a stop and go sign. It's an image of Elvis.
That's pretty
So
cool.
Yeah, we'll be Bad Homburg. We're going to be in Amstetten, and then 2 shows in Vienna. Intercontinental Hotel in Vienna is like a third home to us, so it's great.
That's if weather cooperates, right?
If we can get out of here, yeah. Like I said, Nashville looks like Hoth. It looks like Ice Planet Hoth right now.
Dude, I've lived in Nashville for 20 years, and it never was anything more than a dusting. It would be gone in 2 days, if anything.
I don't know how anything's going to move here for days and days. We're going down. I think we're at about 10 degrees right now.
Yeah.
I don't see how we're going to get out. But
yeah, we've been single digits all week.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, we do this thing here we call Unsung Heroes, where we take a moment to shine the light on somebody who works behind the scenes, somebody who may have supported you along the way. Do you have anybody you'd like to shine a little light on?
All my studio buds. They're the best musicians in the world in Los Angeles, New York, and Nashville. Nobody ever hears about them. Thank goodness for guys like you that get it. Nobody ever hears about the hit makers. So the guys that played records for the last 70 years, the studio guys that nobody ever heard about, once recording got to be popular in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Thank goodness I was on hit records for 5 decades, so I'm very thankful for that. But all the studio guys that nobody ever hears about, those are my heroes, and those are the unsung heroes in music.
A big thanks to Paul for taking the time to share his stories with us, and thank you for taking the time to hang with me here. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can do that and find the links to everything mentioned over at jfranze.com/episode 48. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Jay Franze Show. Make sure you visit us at jfranze.com. Follow, connect, and say hello. This episode has been brought to you by VR Knives, your source for 100% custom knives made by a true rock star. So, if you're in the market for a new piece of art, reach out to VR Knives. 407-421-5528. 407-421-5528.